an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Season 4, Episode 11. I'm almost over you. In this episode, Nathaniel finds a way to cope with the fact that it's time to let go of his relationship with Rebecca. And it turns out that his coping mechanism is very similar to hers. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Megan for commissioning this episode. What's up, Megan, if you're out there? This episode, oh my god, do you guys see my chair sinking before your eyes? I don't know why it's like this. My pneumatic office chair will just suddenly drop 1.5 inches. If I'm on camera, it's just like I slowly am disappearing from the frame. This episode is a little wild. It's a real departure because Rebecca is barely in it. She feels like a bit character. I often wonder about the logistics behind deciding to do an episode like this, because part of me wonders if they didn't, maybe Rachel Bloom needed some time, needed a break, and they were like, all right, well, let's make an episode that Rebecca isn't in that much. Previously, episodes where Rebecca doesn't feature a ton have usually had to do... Oh my god, my chair just dropped again. I'm going to cry. Hold on. So annoying. I'm sorry. Usually, they have had to do with more than one side character. So we would have an episode that we were with Josh and Heather. Or... Valencia and Hector or somebody else. It was usually, there were a couple things going on. And this is interesting because it's really just Nathaniel. I want to say that it's also Maya, but Maya just doesn't feel like a fully fleshed out enough side character to really count. She's a background character for me. A side character is a different thing. So... Nathaniel having his own episode, in essence, is an interesting choice. I liked this episode a lot as I was watching it, but looking back, I'm not really sure about how I feel about it, as a whole in the context of this season. I think that my issue, the reason that I'm not fully 100% excited and on board, is because what this episode is sort of saying, which is, one, that he has to let go of her, but two, also to not look at rom-coms or pop culture in general for your guidance on how to handle relationships, is something that I think has been sort of drilled into us over the last 2 years. So it doesn't feel as fresh a take as it had. That said, I do really enjoy seeing all of the tropes that begin to get played in front of us. And I think that is really fun. So let's talk about it. So the start of the episode, Greg and Rebecca are sitting together. Again, I am just not feeling it with these two. I really don't know if it's just me. Nobody has really, because I put it out there, how did you guys feel about it? And nobody's really said. And I am really curious, guys. Let me know how you felt about these two, because I just don't feel like she has the same chemistry with this actor. That said, the whole setup for this scene is meant to be that the two of them, they are agreeing with one another to take things slow, but then they still decide to make out in front of everybody. And it turns out that Nathaniel is in the lobby watching them. And he's with the security guard, who apparently has been having to listen to Nathaniel's griping a lot. and is starting to really like get sick of it. I can only imagine. There is, depending on the kinds of offices that you work in, there are spots in the building where whoever works at that place sort of is the one to see everything go down. And if, in this sort of scenario, the guard, he's like right by the elevators and he's right by the spot where people like would hang out to chit chat. Even if you weren't going to get a pretzel, I would think about like the flow of traffic. I would absolutely take a pause right by Rebetzel's on my way out to be like, oh, come here, let me tell you something real quick. So I bet that he hears all kinds of shit. And he finally tells Nathaniel, you have got to stop. You sound like a broken record. And then he says something about Maya. And she turns up talking about this woman, Joanne. Joanne is someone that Maya has gone on a couple of dates with. She thought things were going really well. And then all of a sudden, Joanne ghosted her. Now, this is the reason that they say, did you guys hear my cat? This is the reason that they say not to shit where you eat. Oh my God. Do you guys hear that? Can you hear it? I'm sorry this episode is so littered with interruptions. Holy shit. I'm like worried. I'm sorry, guys. That was so distracting. But this whole like the dating someone that you work with is, there is so much potential for that shit to go wrong. And I say this as somebody who literally got engaged to somebody that I was working with. And I can't imagine. Oh my God. Owen's not even home. Guys, that was just the cat somehow freaking out. Oops. I'm sorry. I really have to focus. I don't know if you guys could hear that, so it might just sound like I'm overreacting, but my cats don't really tend to like fight. And there was a real like snarling, prolonged snarl going on. But anyway, the fact that this lady decides to ghost somebody that she works in the same building with, to me, is just profoundly bad judgment. You can't do that. The whole thing with being able to ghost people is that you do it when you know there's really no recourse. You do it when there's either they don't know where you live yet, or they know, but you know they're not the kind of person that's just going to turn up and make a scene. And if you ghost somebody that is in a building with you 5 days out of the week, I just don't see how that works out. Like, she's sort of lucky that Maya hasn't decided to make a thing out of it, because she could. And I wouldn't be mad at her. Ghosting for me is one of those things that's like, it's so cowardly. And I can't fathom deciding to handle things that way unless somebody has been actively like threatening or worrying you somehow, like they may become threatening. Otherwise, holy shit, just tell somebody, hey, I'm not really interested in seeing you again. Bye, you know? So what Maya is doing is also sitting off to the side and watching her flirt with this woman who, it's amazing because what Maya does here is imitate this woman. And she's hanging out with Hair Chewer over there. Hi, I'm Marcy, and I chew my hair, and I make this face. I'm Marcy. But then later, when we actually see Marcy in the context of the movie, that's exactly how she talks, and I thought that was fucking hilarious. So they are both commiserating over the fact that they are feeling powerless and rejected. And Nathaniel says, he goes upstairs and is in the break room and says, I don't like this. It hurts. I don't want to feel like this anymore. I have to do something. I want to do something big and emotional and romantic and fun. And all of a sudden, Paula comes rolling in on her office chair. Oh, what a great entrance. Guys, I really missed Paula, you know, and I don't feel like the show has done her any disservice, But she's just not really involved with things the way that she was when Rebecca's hijinks were the central point. And I miss it. I really do. So she comes rolling in and she's like, are you looking for a romantic comedy? Because I am an expert. Here are your genres. You have your witty British ones, your workplace empowerment movies, bro-y ones where men wax things, and my personal favorite, late middle-age fantasies where women wear white cashmere turtlenecks and have fantastic kitchens. And Nathaniel says, I don't think I've seen any of those. And the two of them are like, oh my God, seriously? What? So when Paula tells him Rebecca absolutely loves them, especially the ones with some kind of powerless, nerdy underdog who with a wacky best friend who feels invisible, but then comes up with a scheme, and then the underdog makes a big grand gesture and wins the person of their dreams. All of a sudden, Nathaniel begins to really listen up. You know, the fact that it's mentioned that Rebecca likes these is what gets his attention the most. So then we cut to him on his bed with all of these Covina movie rental sleeves, which is kind of an amazing thing because, like, I feel that this probably wouldn't be a thing for him anymore, renting like this, but we need to be able to see the titles. So let's see. We've got 10 Things I Hate About You, My Best Friend's Wedding, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, She's All That. There was another one that's like a little bit earlier on and it like the camera cut away before I saw it. I'm trying to see. Never Been Kissed. Right. Okay. So I have seen 10 Things I Hate About You, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Unfortunately, I did see. It was like on television. She's All That I saw way after it was like popular. I saw it. I just wanted to see it because everybody talked about it for so long, but I missed the train where it was actually popular. And Never Been Kissed, I have never seen. My Best Friend's Wedding, I have never seen. So he's watching this like kind of commiserating with the person on the screen. I'm ugly, miserable, and hopelessly in love. Don't worry, it's all going to end up okay. You'll get the guy. That's what always happens. It always works out. And he sort of like spaces out and thinks about it. And when he comes back to himself, he kind of looks like Ducky. Is it Ducky from 16 Candles? Or is that 16 Candles? Or is that Pretty in Pink? Is that Ducky from Pretty in Pink? I can't remember. But that's what he looks like. I guess that constitutes a romantic comedy. I don't often think of teen comedies and romantic comedies being part of the same genre, and I guess there's no reason that they can't overlap. But to me, a true romance doesn't really work for teens. It's like adults are the ones that, for me, that works for. And teens, it just feels like a lot of hijinks with the end goal of the couple being together being very secondary to everything else. Whereas the romantic comedy, it feels like that is the whole thing and everything else just rotates around that. I am just not, we know this. I'm not somebody who really likes romances most of the time. It's not that I have anything against romantic comedies in principle. When they're done well, they're excellent. Like When Harry Met Sally is one of my favorite movies ever. But most of the time, they're not done well, and this is part of why. The tropes that are contained in this episode are an excellent series of examples. It's an inadvertent argument for my side of things and why they suck. Because the whole thing is, I'm going to pine after this person and make every attempt to be with them in an artificial way that feels really desperate and sad. If you do get together with that person, it always would feel to me like, but you had to work so hard to even get them to notice you. Doesn't that feel like maybe this isn't meant to be, or that they didn't notice you because their priorities are in the wrong place? Or half the movie would be spent yearning for somebody that we know is bad for the main character, and the main character seems to not realize it, and they finally get on board and are like, oh, I'm actually in love with this other person who's been in front of me the whole time, which is what this one kind of winds up sort of being in Nathaniel's head. And I find those really tedious because I know that this other person is not the one for them, and I don't enjoy seeing somebody longing for a bad person. Oftentimes it's somebody who's either like just completely left them behind in such a way that it feels like either dismissive or like they've clearly moved on and are not thinking about you at all. Or maybe they did something sort of like despicable or has displayed behaviors that are terrible. And I just, it's hard for me when I don't feel chemistry between actors, as we see in this show with Rebecca and Greg. It isn't clicking for me, so I fail to get invested. And you guys would be shocked. I mean, I say you guys, people would be shocked. I don't know that that's true. I am shocked. How's that? I personally am shocked at how many romantic comedies have two leads that have no chemistry together. Like none. I don't get it. I really don't. Like, I think what it is they cast people just that they know purely box office numbers, they're going to get those. But if they don't have that electricity on screen, it just doesn't work, you know? And there are some movies where people have great chemistry and the romance wasn't even really meant to be anything, but that sort of takes over the movie because they were clearly so into each other. But yeah, a lot of the time there's just, the chemistry isn't there at all. And you're left sort of like, why am I supposed to care if these people get together? Like, they don't really even seem to have anything to talk about, anything in common. And so for me, rom-coms have always been pretty difficult. I have been very into, like Jane Austen, because those at least have incredibly fun dialogue. And there's a social aspect to the fact that the women are in a position where they can't like live a life if they aren't married, that makes it feel a lot more urgent. I understand so much more why they would want to be with this particular person from a purely practical level, setting aside the romance even. So I think that's part of what connects me to those. And also just, like I said, the dialogue and the characters are always really fun. And due to how repressed the emotions tend to be in things like that, that can make for a more electric performance between actors because there isn't the same kind of demonstrations of affection that you're used to seeing in other things. And I think that can work well towards making it look like there's chemistry. But anyway, so I just wanted to, share that there's a lot of romantic comedies I haven't seen. Notting Hill is one that comes up a lot. I don't think I even knew that Notting Hill was a romantic comedy for a while. That's how completely off the radar it was for me. And Never Been Kissed. I mean, is that the one with Adam Sandler? I'm not interested in any romantic comedy that has Adam Sandler in it. Man, that guy sucks. He's the worst. And I just, no. So, okay, moving on. He looks around and he's Ducky. His eyes are very bad and he puts on glasses to complete his look. And George is right there being his wacky sidekick who says sports, football, basketball, whatever, after everything he says. And this transforms this whole story into a bunch of tropes. Hey, you dumb, ugly, hopelessly in love nerd. We're late for work. And he's eating right out of the cereal box Crunchy Puffs. And he stands up and he's got a jersey on. You're my best friend, right? Hey, of course I am. I'm your best friend who loves sports and am unreasonably cocky for such a slight man. Oh my God. I love this. This was really honestly a pretty good intro to this whole thing. So we go into the office and we have, what's his face arriving with his fucking glasses, strolling in. My acupuncturist canceled. Death in the family. He's fired, of course. And he demands the 6th book in the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series. This feels like a reference to something specific. Like, is there a movie where somebody demands the next book in a series? I feel like this rings a bell for me. A lot of the vibe that he has in this as well is a Devil Wears Prada, Glenn Close vibe. Which, oh my God, you want to talk about something that was like supposed to be a workplace empowerment romantic comedy? I saw The Devil Wears Prada, and I will never stop being angry at that movie or the people who like that movie. It's so disgusting to me. That whole movie is riddled with like horrifying messages and really toxic behavior by her like significant others that's treated as completely acceptable and normal. And there's like this moment where she's just referred to as 6 throughout because she's a size 6, which is meant to be fat. And eventually she, and like, of course, throughout, we're treated to a bunch of jokes about how the other girl that's interning has an eating disorder. So it's sort of meant to be, oh, isn't it funny that we are all here, like, thinking how ridiculous the standards are in this industry, that they're meant to be thin. But then, at the end of the episode, it's treated as this giant victory when she gets to announce that she's actually a size 4 now. It's treated as a victory. Like, don't go watch the scene. It's like meant to be just this high five moment. It's so gross. Okay, that's what it is. Samantha says, in The Devil Wears Prada, Miranda Priestley demands her assistant get the 6th or 7th Harry Potter book before it was published for her daughters. Okay, so that is what, because that was the vibe that I was getting was Devil Wears Prada from this, but I wasn't sure. So yeah, Devil Wears Prada can go to hell. And if you like it, you should rewatch it and really reconsider whether or not any of this is okay or acceptable, because it's not. It's just not. Just not. It's bad. It's all bad. The men in it are all trash also. So, it just makes me so angry, you guys. I couldn't believe what I was watching. As the dialogue is happening, I'm like, oh my God, what an asshole. I can't believe he said that to her. And then she'll just completely like crumple and be like, oh my God, you're right. And I'm like, what? No, he's not. I'm so angry all over again. Okay. But I do really enjoy seeing him in the position of this character and him being incredibly like over the top. It's super fun. So then we have the project, the giant presentation that everybody is meant to be like super excited about / worried about / obsessed with. And this is the undercurrent throughout the episode, is that, you know, he and Maya are meant to be working on this and they're slacking off. They are definitely like not actually focused on it in any way until the last second. But for some reason, Paula is super invested in it. And he goes downstairs with George. He sees Rebecca, who is standing, leaning up against the counter so as to better show off her figure and her long curling hair. I have to think that this is extensions. I'm not totally sure. But yeah, she's doing the whole like, come hither gaze. And it's just like very over the top. I love the look that Greg has, where he's wearing a blazer, but with the sleeves like pushed up. And so this intro is a good time. And then throughout, what we keep getting is Jim showing up to tell them about these surprisingly on point social events that keep happening, which just happen to fill the need that they have for being able to like have a chance encounter with a person that they need to be able to talk with / perform in front of, for lack of a better way of saying that. So the first one is that Nathaniel and Nathaniel and George are talking about who they're going to, or where they're going to be able to do their big splashy gesture. And all of a sudden Tim shows up, or Jim shows up and is like, there's going to be a opening night for Greg's father's restaurant that he used to own. He's going to reopen it. And rumor has it that he's going to ask a big question, a big important question of Rebecca. It's so good because it's like, one, that it's pointed out how unlikely it is that he would be able to get all of the zoning and, everything set up to open this place so last second. And two, it's also sort of weird how everybody seems to know that he's going to ask this big important question when apparently Rebecca is completely like blindsided by it. Although I guess maybe she isn't and she's just acting. But I just love the idea that everybody like kind of knows that he's going to propose at this event. Like that's just not usually how that stuff goes unless people are close friends or family. But yeah, this is the perfect, like the perfect event for Nathaniel to just suddenly stand up and declare his love. So he gets very excited about that. And then later, he's talking to Maya, and she is, sharing her whole thing about, what is her name? Joanne? Joyce? Can't remember. But they decide that they are going to team up to make the two of them jealous. And the first thing he does is he kisses Maya without like making sure that it's okay, which she really lets him know she does not have a problem with at all. And it's I really enjoy the series of moments. When I say that she does not have a problem with it at all, that was sarcastic. She obviously is very much not okay with it. And it's like, dude, seriously, what the fuck? Even later on, when he says something about how, like, you look amazing in a magenta dress, she's like, that's super inappropriate, actually. But yeah, I really like, there are a number of moments in this where she kind of, like, says something specifically that flies in the face of how these tropes are meant to work. So first of all, him grabbing and kissing her, she's like, yeah, that's super uncool. Second of all, he tells her that she needs a makeover, and she's like, what the hell? I think that my quirky way of dressing is part of who I am and expresses me. And I really like, I liked how they sort of straddled that line where they're like, all right, we're going to address that. This is a trope. You have a makeover. This is always a thing. And we're going to address the fact that it would certainly be how a movie like this would go to have Maya lose her glasses, to have her wearing a lot more form-fitting, super feminine, often much more dramatic outfits. And I love the stuff that they choose for her because it's just a little bit too much for every scene that she's in. It's just that much where you're just like, this feels wrong. But that feels like what a rom-com would do. And yet they're also like, yeah, but that's kind of fucked up, right? Because like now she's not really Maya anymore. Like we can all look at her and be like, that's not her. That doesn't work. So yeah, I thought that was a smart way of handling it. And, so as they're talking about what they're going to do, they are told about building karaoke. And this is another moment where Tim comes in. That's right. I said building karaoke. The company that owns our building is having a karaoke night, inviting Mountaintop and the insurance company from floor 2 and everyone from Rebetzel's, obviously. And so this is how they're going to be able to make the two of them jealous. We can flaunt our sexy love duet and we'll make Rebecca and Joanne seethe with jealousy. Jim, when is it? Even though a party like that might take a while to plan and execute, it's tonight! And then he just ducks out of there. I really enjoy this a lot. So this is when he says, there's just one problem. we're uggos. We're trad. We're before pictures. We're basically invisible. And she's like, what the hell, dude? Seriously? But nevertheless, they do go and get their makeovers. It's really funny, too. She says, I like my sensible yet quirky clothing. Guys, what about Maya's clothing is quirky? Sensible? Absolutely. It's absolutely like, you know, there's nothing wrong with what she wears. But she says, this is the wording that she uses. I like my sensible and quirky clothing, which expresses my individuality and feisty progressiveness. And winks when she says it. No, Maya, I hate to tell you this, but it really doesn't. At all. If that's what you're trying to get across, like, you're dressed very conservatively and overly simplistic. There's no jewelry. There's no, like, bright splashes of exciting color. There's no, like, fun footwear. Your glasses aren't even interesting. She's got glasses like mine on. These are the glasses that I went for because they were so neutral. I knew I'd be able to wear them with everything because they aren't, you know, elaborate. Like, what? No. So if that's what you're going for, girl, yeah, you're not accomplishing that at all. But what can you do? So then we have the Fifth Avenue Rodeo Drive montage, which is so good. I also love the fact that Daryl gets to play like the bitchy gay friend, which is super duper not Daryl's vibe. Daryl is so over supportive and so emotional and so sweet and always wants to say a nice, encouraging thing. And for him to be the one that's like, oh God, thank God they got their acts together. They're hideous, is just so wildly out of character for him. And it really made the joke extra funny. And I also love the fact that they are sitting around in these dressing rooms just drinking champagne, which, like, that is a thing in higher end establishments when you go clothing shopping, that you'll be offered champagne. But whenever you see it in a movie, it always just feels like, who are these people? Like, where do they live? Because most of us never have the experience of shopping at a place like this. So it feels fake. You know what I mean? Like, I have a friend, her name is Lace, and she used to work for this insane designer in New York City. And this kind of thing was something that they would do. They would provide alcohol for their clients. They would, they had like delivery services where they would send tailors to people's homes and take their measurements and everything at their house, and then, you know, build the suits and whatever, and then deliver them. And the kinds of things that she would tell me about, like, what customer service was expected of her company was just wild to me, because it's, you know, most of us will never ever experience that sort of thing. So it just seems like that's not real. And Paula, they shouldn't be doing this. They have that big presentation that I'm invested in without being directly involved. So then we have Nathaniel come out, and he looks like he has the whole show. You know, he's got black jeans on and a leather jacket, and his hair is all done up. I love that he says something about how, like, I don't remember taking a shower, and my contacts were not in that room, but they're in my eyes now. And then, because this is less exciting, because we've seen before, you know, he's like, this is how he's looked the whole show. But then Maya comes out. And yes, she is wearing this astonishing magenta satin off the shoulder number, and her hair is like down and curled. Her glasses are gone. Her makeup has been done. She looks amazing. I think that I've even mentioned in other episodes that, like, she's one of those people that when she's outside of work and, like, out clubbing or something, probably has such a fierce look. And this is just really gratifying to see her here. She just looks amazing. She looks so much like my friend Lace also, who worked in New York. And she's like the same size, because Lace is like maybe 5 feet tall. But yeah, she says that her glasses are not even prescription, so she just took them off. I wear them to honor Velma from Scooby-Doo. She's everything. And Nathaniel has this moment of, Maya, you look, wow. And he's just staring at her, and I was like, oh, are we doing this? Because I wasn't sure, and I wonder how many other people sort of expected. By the end of this episode, is it going to turn out to be that Nathaniel, like, is actually into Maya? But Maya, by the end of this episode, just seems like such a different person from the Maya that we know. And I was like, well, that might kind of suck if she needs to get a makeover for him to notice her. And then, it feels like she's just sort of changed who she is. And now all of a sudden he realized. And thankfully, that isn't the direction it goes at all. And I didn't think they would, but I wasn't really sure how else they would play it. And what they wound up doing, I thought was really smart. So yeah, he has this long moment of like staring at her and that music playing, that tinkling music that happens when Rebecca sees Josh or Nathaniel or Greg. And then we go to the karaoke party that Josh is hosting. Really good moment of Josh, like going up onto this weird little platform and dancing and just, oh my God, for no reason, you guys. I'm the good looking party guy who dances super well. You guys ready to party? Oh my God. Honestly. So they ask who wants to go first, and inevitably, Nathaniel and Maya go up. I love Rebecca and Greg off to the side because she is meant to be jealous, but she's not jealous in that like I'm agitated way. She's jealous in a real like bitchy way. Like, I can't believe this. Oh my God, do you see them? What are they doing? And it's so good. It's such a good, like, cause yeah, that's definitely a rom-com thing. And I love her talking to Greg and being like, take me out on your boat. And he's like, oh yeah, my boat, the Greg. Oh my God. Truly, in these sorts of movies, you're like, they deserve each other. Why are you trying to break them up? Look at, they're both terrible. Let them be together. It's fine. You're dodging a bullet here. So they get on stage and they sing the obligatory karaoke scene. Is that the name of the song? And gratuitous karaoke moment. That's what it is. We sound really bad, but look, we're starting to sway. And the whole thing is about how slowly the filming gets a little bit better. They are starting to like get the crowd warmed up. Eventually, despite themselves, the rest of the people in the bar start to get sort of into it. And how in the movie, this often feels like an excellent moment, but when you go and rewatch the movie years later, it doesn't actually hold up and it's not really very good. And the film often does not get better after this moment. And I don't know if I've seen a movie that has this moment in it. I absolutely am sure it's a thing, but I don't know what they're referencing here specifically. If there's more than one movie that does this, but I can't think of one personally. The one movie that I've seen like a karaoke moment in that could be kind of called a romantic comedy, even though not really, is The Night Before, which is that Christmas movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which if you guys haven't seen it, is so great. And really, it's an underrated movie in my opinion. And they have like a singing Christmas in Hollis that's that karaoke scene, but it's not like the whole thing. Yeah, I don't know. This I absolutely buy that this is a real trope, but I it didn't quite land for me because I couldn't think of something that it applied to that I had seen. So I just sort of had to take their word for it that all of the things they're saying are what happens. And it does sort of make sense. And then there's this part where the song gets quiet and you hear all the glasses clinking in the room. We take each other in and forget where we are. And until we awkwardly remember we're on stage at a bar. And meanwhile, Rebecca staring daggers at them from the corner. It must have been so fun to play this role, for her to just be like the bitchy ex who's like horribly, jealous off in the corner. That must have been a really good time. So when they're done singing, they look up and both of the people that they were trying to make jealous are gone. And meanwhile, I forgot to mention that, like, throughout this whole thing, because I talked about for a second how the boss is trying to get Tim to find the next Girl with the Dragon Tattoo book, but Tim can't, obviously, because it doesn't exist. And there's like this ongoing thing about how the boss is demanding all of these completely impossible things from Tim. And then later, at the end of the episode, Tim has like a moment where he has somehow managed to accomplish the thing that the boss set him to do, and how he's really like come into his own because he managed to do it. And I remember even as a kid being like, that's not a good thing. All that's teaching the boss is that they can ask for something completely absurd, and this person will indeed make the impossible happen. Which means that they will always expect the impossible, which is not a good precedent to set. But of course, it's always treated like, oh, you managed to pull it off. How about that? Which has, I think, imbued many of us with this idea that, like, oh, if you just work hard, it pays off, because that's what previous generations have experienced. And that's not how it works anymore. What happens now is they ask more and more of you, and if you prove that you can do it, they'll just ask for more than that. And they won't actually give you more respect. They won't actually begin to like curtail their demands. Nothing good comes of allowing your employer to abuse you, ever. So this is, one of those things where it's just kind of like, it's meant to be, I mean, I know in the show that I'm pretty sure they're aware of that, but in movies, it always struck me as just like being able to accomplish something that a person set you to do, that everybody on the surface appreciated, that's just not an option. Like, what are you talking about? It just felt like you're doing the opposite of what you think you're doing. You're not proving you're capable. You're proving that you are indeed the doormat that they treated you as, But anyway, so then we have this amazing scene where Nathaniel and George are doing yoga in the park. Right. Okay, so here's one that I definitely do remember from rom-coms. What is the deal with all these outdoor yoga classes that people go to? I think that the reason they are done in movies like this is because you want your characters to be doing something slightly more interesting than just sitting at a coffee shop. But you can't have them whispering to each other in an enclosed yoga studio, because those places are really echoey and it's very frowned upon to be like talking amongst yourselves. I went to yoga with a friend when I was in Philly, and the class hadn't even started yet, but we were sort of like giggling with each other because we were cracking each other up over something, and we got reprimanded and the class wasn't even starting. So maybe that's why they set it up this way. It's like, it's something visually interesting to watch. And the fact that they're talking to one another while this is going on wouldn't be completely like, cut to, what do they say? Nipped in the bud. But I loved the fact that they're doing this, because it just doesn't, like, why would we do this? So this is the moment where Nathaniel does the whole, like, I'm not in love with Maya. What do you mean? That's not what's going on. I'm so glad that I don't even have to spend time with her anymore. But, surprise, he does. He has to spend time with her because of this big project. And it turns out that the client is the insurance company. And that Joanne is going to be the one that Maya has to present to. I found it very interesting, too, that Maya is still dressing differently. Like, for the rest of this episode, she has taken on that makeover as her whole new look permanently. And she is wearing this pretty great, actually, black collared dress that has, like, this sort of sheer lace top. And I really, really liked this dress, actually. But Nathaniel realizes, you know what? This is like a perfect opportunity. You are going to absolutely blow her away with your argument. And this is how you are going to get her back. So then we have a scene where they're working on the project together. I love this montage. It's so weird, and I like to think of them just like storyboarding all of the random shit from various movies that were included. So we have them like working allegedly on the actual presentation itself, but then we have her like making charts about Rebecca. We have him drawing a turtle, drawing a frog. We have the whole thing, abatement of nuance. Is that Marcy? Just like all of the shit that they're writing, just none of it really works together. Her talking about her dead mom. And eventually there's like a transition where like he's playing the drums and she's dancing. They get the same fortune. All of this like random shit that is meant to indicate they are connecting to one another. They're opening up. And then she said, I am the manager. I was so embarrassed. It's good shit. So, of course, by the end of this, we know that there has been a connection made and that he's sort of into her. She's maybe a little bit into him. He tucks her in on the couch with a blanket. She tucks him in on his bed with a blanket in return later, which is hilarious. And then the next day comes time for the presentation, in which we have Tim show up and stand up for himself. And we have Maya turn up with this power suit-ish thing. Look, I'm not going to lie. I actually do really like this look. But it is so not appropriate for the office that they work in. It's such a perfect choice for this scene, honestly. It's this like sweetheart neckline with matching pants. It's sort of a suit because it's pinstriped, but it's a top. It's not a jacket. And at first she isn't really nailing the presentation and she's very nervous. And as time goes on, we have the music swell, a vague sort of like motion with her hands and her voice starting to like sort of fall to the background so you can't really hear her, but occasionally you get hints of what she's saying where she just says tree frogs, and then compliance and real estate, the environment. And everybody is looking at one another with those knowing smiles. That, I think, was the funniest part of the episode, is the way that they're all looking at one another. That killed me, man. I fucking loved that. That has always been one of those things for me in scenes like that, where people giving each other significant glances is meant to just indicate everything you need to know. And for the most part, people don't actually express approval like that. It will happen occasionally, but folks don't often like it just wouldn't happen. And so in movies, it's vaguely amusing to me. And in this scene, they just overdo it where every single person sitting around the table gets their moment where they all get to look super proud of her, a little bit smug almost. And she finishes the presentation and Nathaniel's like cheering her harder than anybody and super proud. Honestly, it's so funny. I really, really enjoyed this. And Paula finally comes to, oh, it's all I cared about and it happened. And then she finally stops and says, wait, what do I do now? What's my purpose? And everybody just starts to get up to leave and she never gets her answer. And I don't think we see Paula again for the whole episode. And Joanne comes up to her and asks her whether or not she wants to get back together. She says, maybe I was wrong to let you go. Maybe I made a mistake. And when Maya says, what about Marcy? She says, oh, I already dumped that piece of trash. I texted her during the presentation. I swear to God, that hair chewer, I love this. I dumped them. And Maya's response is, oh, that is so sweet. Oh, it's such a great send up of like, you want them to not be with the person they're with anymore, but you don't apparently want to acknowledge that the way they left that person is fucked up and maybe is an indicator of how they might treat you. And you might want to think about that. So the two of them hook up and go to a wine bar. Nathaniel still hasn't realized that he's super into her. He goes to the restaurant opening with George. I love this so much, you guys. Greg is wearing his blazer and he has two sweaters just draped over his shoulders. Oh my God. That's a good visual joke, man. I love that so much. He tells everybody to please have some of the garlic bread that they have flown in from Brooklyn. So now it's time for Nathaniel to make his big speech, his grand gesture. And at first, he isn't thinking he should do it because as far as he knows, Rebecca wasn't even jealous when he sang karaoke with Maya, which of course prompts Tim to swoop in. What? You got the wrong information. Thank God I'm here. Whew. Here's the deal. I saw Rebecca that night at building karaoke. She was jealous. That's why she got out of there. She was stuttering, stammering, trying to cover that jealousy, but I saw it. And before Nathaniel can ask him any advice, he just bails. It's so good. So Nathaniel gets up to make a speech because he sees that Greg is about to kneel and propose to Rebecca. And it's just meant to be in the nick of time before she gets a chance to accept or refuse his proposal. But as he is making his speech, he realizes that this isn't what he should be doing. And he says, I have to go. And he puts the mic down and he runs out of there. And I really was like, at this point, like, what is that? What does that mean? And all of the string quartet follows him out the door, which I found very amusing also. So he goes to the wine bar and he interrupts Maya's date with Joanne and has the string quartet follow in behind him. And he does the, it's always been you. I was a fool. I couldn't see, but you've been here all along. Just listen to me. I'm not the person I used to be. You've changed my whole life, who I am, who I can be. Sure, we're an unexpected couple. You're short, I'm tall, you're quirky, I'm really not. I know the world thinks people like us shouldn't be together, that we don't belong together, but we do. We're that mismatched couple from different worlds that can make it. We've had such happy moments, haven't we? And this is when it starts to get weird. She says, yeah, we have. What we had was wonderful and fun. We had chemistry. And I really thought this could be something. I thought I loved you. The sex was amazing. And he's like, wait, what? And she says, yeah, ever since we had our first kiss in the elevator, our chemistry has been. And he's like stopping her. We never kissed in the elevator. What? And I couldn't, I should have realized by here. I should have realized what they were doing, but I did not. So I was just like, wait, what's happening? And she says, but I'm back with my ex now, someone I have a chance at being truly happy with. Please let me be happy. And all of a sudden, her voice starts sort of echoing. The camera goes to Nathaniel and then goes back to Maya, but it's not Maya. It's Rebecca, and she's saying to him, please let me be happy. And if you really love me, you have to let me go. And I really liked his acting in this scene because his response to that is just, God, really? Which is it's a very short line, but it felt like it just contained a lot, you know? And it's just this moment, like a surprising confrontation that I thought was really done well, where, you know, he's going to have this conversation eventually. He's going to have this realization eventually. But I wasn't really sure what it was going to look like. And having it transform from Maya to Rebecca like that works really well. And kind of cuts through a lot of the, like, what could have been much more annoying actually wound up being pretty entertaining in a way I wouldn't have expected, you know? And yeah, this, ends with this knocking on the door, and all of a sudden he says, no, and he's in bed. And I was like, wait, oh, that didn't happen either. And so it turns out that all of this was going on in his mind. And he finally, like, within his own daydream, came to realize who Maya represented. This whole thing, I really appreciated the way this goes, the ending of this. And there is a pizza delivery guy that he starts crying on his shoulder. And I know that this is kind of like a corny, goofy moment, but the way that he says, how do I let her go? Do you know how I can let her go? And he just starts crying. I actually felt that. I felt like that was like a well-delivered line, and the desperation and sadness was like genuine in a way that it wasn't as funny as it could have been. And I liked it. I thought it all worked, you know? Oh man, that whole moment. So later on, he runs into Rebecca at Rebetzel's. And I love when he walks in and he sees Maya sitting there and just says, you can do better than Joanne. She doesn't understand good karaoke. She dumped Marcy during a meeting. And you look great in magenta dresses. And then he goes up to Rebecca, and she, it turns out, has been wanting to say something to him too. She was going to tell him about her and Greg. Now, I found that kind of funny because, like, you're making out in the lobby. You have to know that he knows already. But evidently, we're acting like he can't see her. So she's surprised that he knows. And he says, but you're happy, right? And she says, well, I don't know if I'm there yet. It's a little soon, but, like, I think so. And he says that he came to the realization that he had to let her go. And she wants to know how. And he says, I had this weird fantasy daydream thing. It's hard to explain, but it's like I imagine myself in a recognizable pop culture genre. And I love the look on her face here where it's just this moment of like, what's that? What? Excuse me? Yeah. Like I was trying out a persona to try and figure out something in my life. And her looking at him, go on. Well, while I was doing that, I realized something that I hadn't realized before. And I learned something from it. And she says, yeah, I can relate. And I was sort of like, is the fact that he can do that, like that he experienced this, going to make her sort of change her mind about whether they're compatible? I don't know. But yeah, it comes down to, I had to let you go. And he's a good guy. He really is. He's a great guy. He's not some jerk who wears blazers and sometimes 2 sweaters. Oh, that was good. And at the end of it all, he says, I'm happy you're happy. I really am. And it makes me happy too. And I don't know. I really, I have been very hard on Nathaniel throughout this show. And I really feel like the way that this episode ended warmed me to him a little bit. It's closing the door on him and Rebecca, which is probably a big part of it because I really wasn't into that. But it's also us getting to see him as an actor do something a little bit different. And it feeling like real, genuine growth in a way that other things haven't really exactly felt that way for me. I don't know. I liked it a lot more than I expected. And he gets on the elevator and leaves. And Greg comes in saying that he wanted to see Rebecca, even though they had just hung out like an hour ago. And they just start making out in the lobby. And then we go to the security guy who is daydreaming about being the mean boss on the elevator. Get my steak ready, Emily Blunt. And that's the end of the episode. So, yeah, this episode wasn't like a slam dunk for me, but I did enjoy it. And like I said, I feel like I came out the other side liking Nathaniel better as a character, which I needed to like him better. I just really did. He's, I feel like looking back on him from this, I would find a rewatch more enjoyable because otherwise he felt so shoehorned in places. So that worked for me. Yeah, that's the end of the episode. So I have to wrap. But thank you guys again for hanging out with me. Thank you, Samantha, for being in the chat. Thank you, Megan, for commissioning this. And I will be seeing you all again pretty soon, I think. Yep. Oh, no, not till May with another episode. Not till May. Shit. I didn't realize it was going to be that long. Over a month. May 28th. It's going to be almost 2 months. Wow. Okay. Well, stay posted, guys. You'll see as long as I'm not banned from Facebook again, you'll see the notifications. So until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.